The story you're about to hear goes back 43 years. This is a story of our investigation of Dogwood, Indiana. It's a little nothing town that really wasn't much back then, and it's changed a lot today. So I will tell you about the changes as we go through the story. So stay tuned. Here's our explanation of Dogwood. Back in 1980, I acquired my first car. It was a 74 Ford Maverick. We loved this car, and it was the first car that me and the group of guys ever had a chance to run around in. And this car comes in important to the story that you're about to hear. We had heard this old story about my family when they used to live or used to stay down on the creek that ran through Dogwood, Indiana. And it was said that there used to be an old woman that would get out there and walk the creek at night. Nobody knew where she came from or where she was going. All we knew was there was this old woman there, and we decided that we were going to go down and check it out. But first I had to get provisions for the group. So I went out and I bought a bunch of flashlights at J.C. Penney. Now we're coming into Dogwood. There's not much to Dogwood. There's a lot less back when we did our investigation down here. But you can see it's back a long winding 337 road. My family used to live back here a while back, and it was rumored that while they lived down here back on the creek that runs through Dogwood, that there was an old woman that used to walk the creek. I don't know where she came from, who she was. We heard about this story and we decided that, hey, we'd come down and check it out. It was late one evening, and I'll tell you more about the story here in a little bit. Let me get through the drive of Dogwood. The story of Dogwood takes us back many, many years, 43 years ago, back when I was in a band called the Mythmaker Band. And we'd heard stories from my family, whether they were true or not, I don't know for sure. But we were curious about this woman that walked along this creek. And so we went down to investigate, and after I bought several flashlights for the band, we all piled in the Maverick, and we went down to Dogwood to investigate. And when we got there, it was a nothing town, really. It's the first time I ever really been there. And we pulled off to the side of the road where there was an old gravel road that led back by this old barn-looking structure. And it was right next to the creek. So we thought, this has to be it. So we got off there, we exited the car, and we started walking back the creek. When we walked down this path and really not knowing what we were looking for, I had the feeling that we would come across an old house or so back this area where the family used to live. I'm not for sure, but after about a mile or so back this path, we came across a broken down structure that looked to be a house. After about 40 minutes or so of looking around this old structure and not figuring out who lived here, how long it's been abandoned, and it was torn down, we decided that it was time to head back to the car. And so on our way back, we walked very slowly but we kept hearing things out toward the water. Even though we kept looking out toward the water, we didn't see anything. But we decided still it was time to head back to the car and head back home. When we got back to the car, we were not so excited about our trip. I mean, it didn't seem like much had taken place. And so we decided we'd pile into the car and we'd head on back to the old practice studio back in New Middletown, which was less than 12 miles away. But when we got into the car and we went to start the car started up okay. But when I went to put on the headlights didn't come on. And they wouldn't come on bright beams either. So I couldn't figure this out, and it was like, this is just weird, and that both headlights would burn out at the same time. So we stood there and thought for a minute, what are we going to do? We got to get out of here. We got to get home. So we decided to take the flashlights, turn them on, shine them out the window, and I'd drive the road all the way home with the use of flashlights and hoping that we don't run into the police on the way home. After a long and treacherous ride home, which 12 miles wouldn't take any more than 16 minutes the most on back roads, ended up taking us a little over an hour to make it home. And to say as much, fog was coming in. It was difficult to see the road. When we got home, we started talking about it, and we really didn't give it much thought. I mean, after all, both headlights had burned out at the same time. So the next day I got up and decided, well, I got to fix the headlights on the car. I got to go to work coming up this next week. And when I went out to check into the headlights, I started the car, turned the lights on. Both of them came on brightly. Both headlights. Neither one was burnt out. The brights worked and the dims worked. So what could have happened back at the creek to make this thing happen to the car? I mean, was it a silly coincidence? A short in the circuitry? I never had any problem with those headlights since. So it kind of makes you sit back and wonder, what had been back at creek, and did something follow us back?